Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Headford, Associate Director and Head of Tiger HR. And today I'm delighted to be joined once again by the lovely Sarah Ball, employment lawyer at Birketts, to bring you an update on the UK Employment Rights Act. So today we're going to be discussing what is coming into legislation around unfair dismissal and what that means for the recruitment process. So we'd love to get going if that's all okay, Sarah.
Great, yes, let's do it.
Fantastic. So first question, could you just remind us all what is changing in relation to the unfair dismissal law?
Yeah, so after a lot of uncertainty last year, there's now two things that we know are changing. One is that the qualifying period for making a claim of ordinary unfair dismissal is changing from 2 years service to 6 months service. And last year there was lots of talk about the length of that qualifying period. There was some discussion about whether or not there was going to be a modified procedure, a modified statutory procedure during the initial period, but there isn't. So we've just got a change of 2 years to 6 months. And the other big change is there's going to be a change in the compensation you can get for a successful claim for unfair dismissal. And that's always been capped at the lower of either 12 months pay or about £123,000. So that amount changed every year, but at present it's about £123,000. Those two caps are going to be entirely lifted. So for high earners, this is suddenly going to become a much more interesting claim to try and make if you've, for senior executives, for example, if you've been terminated.
Okay, wow. Okay, so two huge changes then, essentially. Yeah. So tell us then, does that apply to everyone, whether they were recruited before or after January the 1st, 2027?
So I think this is a good question because most people are focusing on new recruits and thinking about what do I need to do about probationary periods and so forth. But it is going to apply to everybody. So anybody who's recruited on or before the 1st of July this year, they will have claims valid, be able to bring a claim for unfair dismissal as of the 1st of January 2027. And that anyone recruited after the 1st of July will gain protection after they've been in post for 6 months. So you've potentially got scenarios where you'll have people who you've recruited this year who might have just scraped through their probationary period, and then they'll gain the right to make a claim for unfair dismissal as of the 1st of January next year. So you need to be thinking about those two cohorts, the people who are perhaps fairly recent joiners, and then those who you're going to be bringing in through the course of the second half of this year and thereafter.
Right, okay. So, would you be able to tell us a little bit about the discussions that you're having with your clients at the moment?
Yeah, so we're talking to clients about tightening up recruitment processes, about probationary period length. A lot of clients who have, say, a 6-month probationary period are reducing it. Most clients and most employers that we're speaking to are looking at having a 3-month probationary period with a possibility of an extension of 1 or maximum 2 months. And I think that's going to be where a lot of employers land. And then the other thing we're talking to clients about is managing performance, and particularly how might you do that with your more highly paid staff who in the past you might have just had a discussion with about an exit and not gone through a sort of full process with.
Right, okay. So I'd love to focus on the recruitment side, if that's okay. So what should employers be thinking about then when they're reviewing their recruitment processes at this stage?
So I think there's a few different things. First of all, starting off with a good job spec or a job description and thinking about that in advance. I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on managers to get a new person in position. They might have had somebody resign. There might be the scenario where they're just desperate to get a replacement in or a new recruit because of a business need, and they don't really think about the job spec or the job description too carefully. And of course, when you're speaking to your recruiters, you really do need to be able to give them that information so that they can ensure they're sourcing the right person for you. And then obviously you want to be working with a good recruiter because you want them to source suitably qualified and vetted candidates. You want the best shortlist you can possibly get, and have a robust shortlisting process. Thinking about interviews as well, you really want to make sure you're doing it in quite a structured way so that each person has a fair crack at the interview process. And for all sorts of reasons, for diversity reasons, as well as sort of reasons of robust process, you want to ensure that, if possible, you've got a panel of interviewers, not just one person, so that you get the best kind of input from different members of your team, and just a really rounded view of what the individual is like. Lots of our employers already do this. They already look at other types of assessment as well. So different tests that might be more aptitude based. Some people perform brilliantly in interviews, but actually they don't necessarily go through a process which demonstrates whether or not they're going to be good at the particular role that they're being recruited for. So thinking a bit outside the box as to what are the options that might be on that front. And then pre-employment checks. It's not unusual for us to have a phone call from a client saying, okay, well, we did get the first reference, but then we just needed them to start and we didn't get the second reference before they started. And actually it's come back and it's a bit of a problem. It doesn't look quite right. Of course, these days, a lot of references are just job titles and dates of employment. But if you can get more than that, or if, for example, an employer refuses to supply that, that might be a bit of a red flag. So making sure that you've ticked those boxes as well before you put the person into place. And then I think a big theme of this year and next year is going to be training for managers. So training them on hiring processes, training them on performance management, giving them the tools so that they feel confident to have discussions about performance early on, making sure they're documenting those performance issues. And likewise, during the recruitment process, making sure that there's a structured process, that there's a series of different forms that have been completed so that you've got the basic information about each person, and you're confident it's a good recruit. And we all understand there's commercial pressures, and sometimes you end up recruiting someone who you're not 100% sure about because you just need someone in the post. But just making sure that you've at least gone through those processes, and then you performance management once they're on position, and that they know there's going to be a probationary period, and that you're going to be reviewing them and actively reviewing them throughout that probationary period.
Yeah, fantastic. All fantastic advice. And I feel a lot of our clients are already doing that. However, to really sort of hear that, particularly around the employment checks and that training process for the hiring managers, I think is a real reminder, I suppose.
I think so. Right. And I think, I was just going to say, I think a lot of employers are already doing this, but I think probably haven't sat down for a while and looked at it kind of holistically and overall. Are we, getting all the right things in place? And I think it's a really good opportunity this year to make sure that you're doing that.
Yeah, across the board as well, across all different departments, every hiring manager as well. That's definitely the feedback that we have been seeing. I mean, how can employers get more support then, more assistance?
So Birketts, we've developed some products, and we have a training program called Shaping Excellence, where we have lots of training programs and different types of programs, both for HR teams, but also for managers. some with bigger cohorts, some with smaller cohorts. A lot of them can be done remotely. So that's one option. And we've also developed a probationary period toolkit. And you're very welcome to get in touch with me, and I can send you details about this. But it's essentially a product under which you can have 3 different options depending upon the level of support you need for making sure that your probationary period is fit for purpose going forward and into this new regime.
That sounds fantastic, and I'm sure a lot of people listening today would really benefit from that. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your insights, obviously, around unfair dismissal. But for anyone else that is listening along, if you did find this session useful and if you'd like that more information, please do not hesitate to reach out to Sarah directly on LinkedIn. Alternatively, though, we will be sharing your email address in the event subscription and in the comments below as well, just in case anyone missed that. And then alternatively, if you are considering any new up-and-coming hires in the next few months, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself directly via LinkedIn. But we also have our contact details as well on screen. So we hope to see you again. And that's all. And thank you so much for everything, Sarah. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kate.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.